Hey guys, so chapter 12, the personality disorders. So, like I said in the written intro to this section, this chapter is a beast as far as information goes, and this is where you should spend the majority of your study time and prep for the upcoming exams. Personality disorders cover a huge range of psychological disorders, and they are all unique, but yet they're all similar because they have overlapping symptoms, and there's certain characteristics of each one that make it unique. So it can be easy to get them confused. And if you see symptoms on, say, an exam or something, it can be easy to go, oh yeah, that fits that one. But if you read the whole question, you'll say, oh wait, it fits that one and that one and that one. So there's got to be more to it. So this is a good spot to pay attention and take some notes. So the personality disorders are broken up into three groups or clusters. Those clusters are very not creatively called A, B, and C. And each one of those clusters has a group of personality disorders under it. And just like all other disorders, as defined by the DSM-5, they have specific diagnostic criteria, symptoms, times, those kind of things that qualify for these disorders. Some of the personality disorders are pretty common and have a decent prognosis for treatment, and some of the personality disorders are kind of rare and can be very, very serious and don't have that good of a prognosis. Guarantee, as we go through this information, you're going to hear somebody you know. You're going to say, oh my God, that's so-and-so. I know that person, right? Well, maybe. Again, and just like the caveat with all the other disorders we've talked about, it's pretty easy to pick yourself or people you know out of the symptoms that I'm reading. At the end of the day, the caveat is they have to be so severe that they are impeding that person's ability to have a good, healthy life. Okay? So just because somebody has a personality flaw doesn't mean they have a disorder. Okay, so please don't use this information, go run back and accuse your sister of being histrionic or something. Okay, all right, so cluster A are what we call the eccentric or odd disorders. And as we go through this, I'm going to break down the symptoms of the disorders, the diagnostic criteria for the disorders, and then we're also going to talk about the diagnosis pattern. That is, some of these are much more likely to be in a male, some of these are much more likely to be in a female, and some are split kind of even. There's a few of them that are pretty much the gender opposites of each other. In other words, we see certain disorders in a male, and when a female has almost the exact same symptoms, we call it the other disorder. Or it manifests just a little bit differently. And that has a lot to do with gender roles in society. Good question to ask yourself would be is, if somebody is gender dysphoric, how would that play out if they also had one of these disorders? That's not on the test, just something to think about. Okay, so the eccentric disorders. We'll start with the paranoid personality disorder. So we all know what the word paranoid means, right? It means somebody who is distrustful of the things or situations around them and has beliefs that they are being threatened or watched or chased or something about them is being persecuted. The paranoid personality disorder, and all of these can occur on that continuum. The paranoid personality disorder can be very extreme to the point where the person is almost delusional. It is typified by an extreme distrust of everything in the environment around them. And again, it happens on a continuum. So that distrust can just be of, let's say, doctors. You know, I believe all doctors are part of some cabal that is designed to keep the American people constantly sick or whatever. I don't know, whatever. Can make up your conspiracy theory. But when I just say conspiracy theory, paranoid personality disorder, hand in hand. That doesn't mean all conspiracy theories are evidence of paranoid personality disorder, but everyone with paranoid personality disorder almost always comes up with a conspiracy theory. It doesn't have to be about the government. It doesn't have to be about the law. It can be as just about their family. And this can get really bad, man. People with paranoid personality disorder can be overtaken with this irrational belief that people are trying to poison them. And over time, as the disease progresses, we find the paranoia starting to spread wider and wider. So maybe it starts off with just doctors trying to poison us. But now the doctors have gotten to the restaurant workers. And so I can't eat in a restaurant because there's people trying to poison us. And oh my God, they've gotten to my family now. And now I can't eat any food in my house. And so you see this person with refrigerators stocked with their own food or growing their own stuff. You know, you start to see all these strange behaviors, you know, the cabin in the woods kind of cut off from society and technology, which actually doesn't sound too bad sometimes. Cut off from society and technology, off the grid, you know, can't let the government know what my face looks like. There was a thing going around for a while. People were like, the face recognition ID on your phone is being used by the government to track what you look like. And I'm like, don't you got a driver's license? They already know what you look like. But you know, there's a healthy amount of concern for your personal security and safety that is healthy and reasonable. I mean, you know, identity theft is a real thing. Crime is a real thing. Stalkers are a real thing, and people have been victims of these types of things before. So sometimes you have to take a double step back and say, wait a minute, is what this person saying making sense? Is it likely that they're under FBI surveillance? Is it likely that they are the center of some? And there's kind of a self-centeredness to paranoid personality disorder, where it's not just that I'm being persecuted or at risk, but it's because I'm special. There's something about me that's special. It's not to the point of narcissism or anything, but the government is watching me because, you know, not just the government is watching me, but the government's watching me because, and that's kind of the evolution of the disease. There is a correlation with schizophrenia and paranoid personality disorder, and we're going to talk about schizophrenia and the psychotic disorders later. But as I told you in an earlier lecture, schizophrenia, its key characteristic is delusions, beliefs, and hallucinations of things that aren't true, don't make sense. So it's very common for a schizophrenic person to have paranoid personality disorder, or what we just put them together and call paranoid schizophrenia. So this is a person who hears things, sees things, believes things that aren't true, and believes all those things are out to get them. Okay, and of course, when paranoia and schizophrenia go together, that can be a really unfortunate combination for that person, because, you know, then they see and hear things that validate their paranoias, which aren't necessarily happening. The movie came out 15 years ago. I don't know. It starred Russell Crowe. It's called A Beautiful Mind. It's a true story about a brilliant scientist and mathematician who was also who had paranoid schizophrenia, and the things that he believed were going on in the world around him, and how he was able to eventually overcome them to some degree. The fact of the matter is, none of these disorders prohibit you from being intelligent. None of these disorders prohibit you from being a brilliant mathematician or a scientist or a historian or any of these things. It may make it hard for you to navigate that world, but nothing prevents you from being intelligent. So people with paranoid personality disorder can be incredibly smart. And that tends to add to the issue because they know a lot of stuff. And so they use kind of a hyper logic to make things fit. Talk about hyper logic. A person with paranoid personality disorder may believe, let's just say the FBI is watching them. And later on down the road in the week, there's a police activity at the house next door to theirs, you know, whatever, the cops show up for whatever reason. The person with paranoid personality disorder will use hyper logic to connect those two events and try and make it make sense to them. They will begin to bend the facts around them to make it make sense. And sometimes it does make sense when they do it, and sometimes it really, really doesn't. Paranoid personality disorder is incredibly difficult to treat. And the reason why is because people with paranoid personality disorder are paranoid. They don't want treatment. They don't believe anything is wrong. They don't think there's anything wrong with them or their mind. And it's the rest of us that are out to get them. And any treatment is designed to take away whatever observation they have of the world around them, whatever they can see through the veil. They are woke. And their ability to see through the veil, to see what's really going on in the government, to see what's really going on in the in the world around them, whether it be as wacky as aliens or as pedestrian as the police department, their ability to see it is what we're trying to take away. So they're very difficult to treat because they're genuinely unwilling clients until something unfortunately happens that forces them into treatment. And it should be said here too, when talking about paranoid personality disorder, there's maybe a chance you're thinking to yourself, oh, that sounds like this political party or that political party, or it sounds like these other whack jobs I hear about all the time. So let's be very clear. This isn't owned by any political group, any racial group, any social group. These are people suffering from a severe mental disorder, and they can be anywhere. So when you hear about right-wing conspiracy theorists, left-wing conspiracy theorists, in the middle conspiracy theorists, whatever conspiracy theorists, libertarian conspiracy theorists, the politics of these people is secondary to the disorder, and it can go either way at any time. And when one of these folks commits a terrible, horrible crime, most do not, but it has happened. Try not to jump to the politics of it, and try and look more at the disorder, no matter what the politics are, because the politics are secondary. All right, schizoid personality disorder. This one, and I just want to get out here, in the odd eccentric, there's a whole ton of schizotypal, schizoid disorders listed in the book. I want you to understand schizoid, okay? And it is not to be confused with schizophrenia or schizophrenic. It is its own thing. The schizoid personality disorder is basically all your emotions are dialed down to 2 or 1 or not. The schizoid personality disorder, a person with schizoid personality disorder, has no emotional affect. They don't react to things. You can praise them, they're deadpan. You can criticize them, deadpan. Stress, deadpan. Happiness, deadpan. Joy, all of that stuff, they have a very limited range of emotional affect. Similar to the autism spectrum disorder in some cases. Very, very limited range of emotion, very blunted emotional affect. They are completely unmoved by praise or criticism. They don't care. And they have very, very limited social skills because they don't have the ability to process human emotion. They don't have that empathy. When you look at somebody, you can tell when they're happy. You can tell when they're sad, with pretty good accuracy before a word ever comes out of their mouth. Right? We can read people's faces. And then when they start talking, we can hear the tone in their voice. We can hear the message under the message. Right? We all know about nonverbal communication. We can read these type of cues and stuff. People with schizoid personality disorder don't pick up on that stuff. The words are the words that they mean. When somebody says, I would love to do that, that means they would love to do that. And if they say it sarcastically, oh yeah, I'd love to do that, they don't pick up on that. It is emotion is completely withdrawn, and empathy, the ability to perceive other people's emotions, is withdrawn. And to some degree, sympathy, the ability to feel bad for other people, is withdrawn. Because they also don't have this for themselves. These people are very socially isolated because, frankly, it can be very taxing to be around somebody like that who does not live in the same emotional realm that the rest of us do, because they can come off as selfish and self-centered because they want things and they're just going to say they want them or do them. They're going to expect you to want to do them or not. They really don't care, but they come off as very demanding, very selfish, very rigid, very unyielding. They like what they like. They don't like what they don't like, and your opinions really don't matter. Never ask somebody with schizoid personality disorder, do these jeans make me look fat? Because they will tell you. I'm thinking right now of Sheldon Cooper on The Big Bang Theory, right? His character was, of course, a caricature of a whole host of different, mainly personality disorders, but one of his key components to him was a schizoid personality disorder, where he's unable to detect sarcasm, unable to detect emotion, and of course his character is not a true schizoid because he comes in and out of it, and later on he grows in the series and all this other stuff. But those type of character archetypes, that caricature he was playing, are schizoid type personalities. And also the frustration and anger that his friends constantly felt, which we laughed at, right, because it was funny, but in reality that's not a funny way to try and live. Because of that, these people tend to be very isolated, to live by themselves. They don't get married, they don't have boyfriends or girlfriends, they don't associate with other people, they don't do well in the workforce, they don't do well in jobs, they don't do, because whether we like it or not, being able to interact with other humans successfully is a key part of being a successful human. There are very few jobs you can do out there where you have zero interaction with other people. Even IT techs, even vloggers, even Twitch streamers still have to be able to interact at some level, at some point, with other people, albeit to a great degree less. But those are pretty limited markets. Not everybody can do that. Schizoid personality disorder can be treated through both medication and cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm sorry, not cognitive behavioral therapy, behavioral therapy. And the prognosis for not recovery but improvement is mild. We have seen some growth in people, and we're not really sure where it comes from. Is it a childhood trauma that causes the person's emotions to blunt, or is it a genetic issue with the brain? We see a similar lack of affect in persons with post-traumatic stress disorder and other trauma-based disorders, where all their emotions just kind of shut down as kind of a defense mechanism to keep them from feeling those emotions. So there is some precedent for that thought, but we don't have that locked down yet. Okay, that's going to do it for the eccentric. There's a bunch more, but those are the ones I want you to know. Okay, cluster B, the emotional ones. Okay, there's going to be a lot here. Okay, because these are the ones you're going to run into the most often. We'll start with histrionic. Histrionic behavior is so popular in our society, especially with the rise of social media and the everybody look at me. There's a time, you may or may not know this, but there was a time when we did not think that anybody gave a crap what we were eating for dinner, and we did not need to constantly post pictures of what we were doing for the rest of the world to see. I can remember a time before that when you weren't reachable 24 hours a day. If you weren't home to answer the phone, you just missed the call. Nobody, and now, every minute of our lives, we are constantly putting out there for people to see, and we think people care and are interested. But the reality is, there's an old saying, people only ask about your weekend so they can tell you about their weekend. The reality is we put that stuff out there, and we see it from other people. We're not putting it out there because we want to interact with other people. We're putting it out there because we want their reactions to what we put out there. We're getting these likes and everything, and every little like is a little dopamine release in the brain, and we start to put value on that. When somebody says, oh my God, my Instagram had 62 million followers, my Twitter had 140 million followers. You got to ask yourself at the end of the day, unless those followers are paying you money, who cares? Like, seriously, who cares? Who cares how many followers you have? These people don't know you. They don't care. And when they say things like, yeah, I like what you did, I love that, that was awesome, well said, bro, or I think you're crazy, or whatever, who cares? So some kid in China you're never going to meet, right? Some kid in New Jersey, who cares? Who cares what they think, right? But we do now. We do care. because we have a histrionic culture now. And histrionic is a condition where the person who has histrionic personality disorder is self-centered. That is not selfish. The two are totally different. They are self-centered. The world revolves around them. Okay? They can still be a good person. They can still do for other people. They can still care about other people. But at the end of the day, it's all about them. This is the person who, if you tell a story, if you tell anything, oh man, I had to go to the doctor today because, I had this pain in my foot or whatever. They're not going to say to you, oh, that sucks, man. What happened? I hope you're okay. Are you going to be able to go to work? They're not going to do that. They're going to do this. Yeah, you know what? I had a pain in my foot too. Every freaking time. You lose a family member, hey, just want to say, I miss you, Dad, and I'm sorry, and I hope you're in a better place now or whatever. They're not going to pop off with, oh God, man, my condolences. I'm really sorry to hear that. What can I do for you? They're going to come back with, yeah, I remember when my grandma died. I felt the same way. It's always going to turn around and come back to them. Always. It's always going to be back to them. That's not enough to be histrionic, though. That's just bad manners. So in that sense, they are very vain. It is very much, the world is very much about them. They think they are special and worthy of attention. Not to the point of narcissism where it's psychotic, but they are very self-centered. And you see what I mean by the whole Instagram culture we talk about, because for some reason we think people would care to know what our workouts look like or something. They are overly dramatic. So, this is the person who, if they have a minor inconvenience, the lady at Starbucks spelled their name wrong on their cup or got their order wrong, they're going to post a long rant. FML, F my life. I can't believe this. God, why does nothing ever go right for me? Right? They get a minor injury and they're going to post it online like they just suffered a gunshot wound. Anything that happens to them is super dramatic, and any expression of emotion is super dramatic. Okay. Again, you probably know somebody like this. I'm going to tell you right now, I come from Latino culture, right? I'm a Chicano. I come from California, from LA, and our culture encourages what other cultures may consider an overly emotional response to things, because that's how we show that we really believe what we are saying. The more emotion you show, the more you believe it. That's not true in other cultures. So this is why in our culture, oh, Dios mío, oh my God, and these things. So there's this over expression of emotion compared to some other cultures which concentrate, I'll use, for example, the Japanese culture, which concentrates on a minimization of emotional expression, right? Those two cultures, as far as emotional expression, are exactly polar opposite. That's not racist. That's cultural. That's how they work. And that's why they're both beautiful, because they have their own thing, and it's kind of cool, right? But that does not make the entire population of Mexico or Puerto Rico histrionic, okay? Being dramatic doesn't make you histrionic. Being self-centered doesn't make you histrionic on its own. There's more. Upset if ignored. So you got a cat? I characterize this like having a cat. You ever have a cat and the cat will not let you ignore it? If you're reading a book, it's going to get on the book. If you're on a computer, it's going to get on the computer. If you're playing a video game, it's going to get on your lap, knock the damn controller out of your hand and get in your face and be like, why aren't you petting me? Right? And then once you start, it gets disinterested and goes away. Exact same thing. The histrionic person does not like to be ignored. If you know somebody who's histrionic, who's truly has a histrionic personality disorder, if you want to see them get angry, like flip out, instead of arguing back with them, just ignore them. That is the one thing a histrionic person cannot handle, because again, the world revolves around them. They are the center of the universe. And if you aren't buying into that, then their worldview is getting shaken up. They do not like being ignored. So you got these personality characteristics, right? They're overly dramatic. Everything is about them. They're going to make everything about them. And if you ignore them or downplay what's going on, they're going to get upset. Okay. This person has 5 million best friends 1 minute and 0 best friends another. This is the person who's going to talk about, you know, oh my God, I love her. She's so amazing. She's my bestie, Yas Queen. 1 minute, and then the next minute, like, oh my God, I can't believe I ever talked to that B word. Like, she's the worst thing ever. And what that B word probably did was say, you know, I don't think that disease is as serious as you think it is. Or, oh, calm down, it's not that big a deal. Okay. That's histrionic personality disorder. Now remember, all of these character traits can be personality flaws in a person. I can be very dramatic, right? You know, I have a friend who can be self-centered sometimes. We can all be self-centered sometimes. We can all be overly dramatic, right? And then there's cultural things that go into it too, right? Like I explained with the Latino culture. That being said, all of these have to exist together to the point where they're actually hampering your ability to succeed at life. And there's that caveat again. I don't know any people from the neighborhood I grew up in who are so dramatic that it actually prevents them from holding a job down, right? I don't know anybody who's so self-centered that they cannot have a relationship. I don't know anybody who is so needy of attention that they're willing to make up lies and say things that aren't true just to get people to look at them. And I certainly don't know anybody personally who's all three. Okay, but if I did, they'd probably be female, because histrionic disorder is primarily diagnosed in women. Can a male be histrionic? Absolutely, absolutely can. But statistically speaking, it tends to be diagnosed in females. So, and when it does manifest in men, it tends to come out in a slightly different way, and that's just due to gender roles in society. So histrionic disorder, overly dramatic, self-centered, hates to be ignored, usually diagnosed in women. Okay. Antisocial personality disorder. We used to call this sociopath. If histrionic personality disorder is, it is a problem for people in their lives, but not necessarily given towards criminal activity or dangerousness. The sociopath or the antisocial personality disorder is kind of the exact opposite. I've tried very hard during these lectures to say, you know, just because somebody has a mental disorder or a mental illness does not make them a criminal, does not make them dangerous, does not make them violent. You know, I'm a big advocate for people with PTSD and bipolar and stuff trying to lead normal lives and not have that stigma. Antisocial personality disorder or sociopathology is a tough one to make that sale for, because almost always a person with antisocial ends up breaking the law. They almost always end up committing crimes, and very frequently they are dangerous. When you go online and you see one of these stupid pop psychology tests, like, you know, 5 ways to tell you're dating a narcissist, actually what they tend to be describing is somebody with antisocial personality disorder. Antisocials or sociopaths are almost always men, as compared to histrionics, which are almost always females. Can an antisocial be a woman? Yes, but it tends to manifest in a different disorder, just like the other ones. You cannot diagnose somebody with antisocial personality disorder below the age of 14. They have to be at least 14 years old before they can get this diagnosis. It's a serious diagnosis. Antisocial doesn't mean you don't like to be around people. That's kind of like the colloquial modern definition of antisocial. Antisocial in this sense means you aren't part of the society. You aren't part of the social. You are removed from society. And when I say removed from society, I mean removed from society's rules of behavior, removed from society's rules of law, removed from society's norms, removed from all the constraints of society. Somebody with antisocial personality disorder, somebody who's a sociopath, does not believe the rules apply to them. They don't necessarily believe they're special, like a narcissist. They don't necessarily believe that they're somehow a special creature. They just don't care. I've heard it described that people with antisocial personality disorder lack a conscience. They do not have the ability to regret what they have done or what they may do, because they don't regret, and a conscience is drilled into us by the social order, that it is a completely nurture thing. The idea of a conscience, when you feel guilty or you feel bad about something, it's because you've learned that that is something you should not do, and you've learned about that through your interactions with other humans throughout your life. So when somebody lacks that, they do not have a conscience, then there is no reason for them not to do anything they want. We go back to Freudian descriptions, and I know I hate to keep going back to this, but we talk about the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is that pleasure principle that says, I want this and I want it now. The sociopath, the antisocial personality disorder, doesn't work on anything but that. I want it, so I'm going to do it. I want that, I'll steal it. I'm mad at him, so I'll kill him. I want to have sex with that person, so I'm going to assault them. Yeah, but it's against the law. I don't care. Yeah, but it'll hurt their feelings. I don't care, right? I sat down and interviewed quite a few sociopaths or antisocials in my time from a criminal justice standpoint, and it's incredible the ability that they have, this people with antisocial personality disorder have to chameleon and mimic the emotions of others. They've learned how to pretend to be sad. A person, a true antisocial, can cry like that. They can fake guilt like that, as long as it serves their purpose. Once it stops, help feeding that id. Once it's no longer valuable, like, okay, I don't care that I broke the law, but I do not want to go to jail. Jail sucks. I don't want to go to jail, so I'm going to cry. I'm going to show remorse. I'm going to do all this stuff. And oh, crap, I'm going to jail anyway. All right, boom, tears off. Just over. Antisocial personality, antisocials are almost always have a criminal record by a certain point, because they don't honor laws. They don't honor the way other people feel. Now, antisocial can occur on a continuum. And it's been said before that, there's no such thing as a successful politician, lawyer, some of the more brilliant engineering minds of our times, like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, who don't have some level of antisocial personality disorder. Some disregard for the constraints of society in pursuit of their own goals. So, can an antisocial do good things? Sure, if they want. If for some reason it pleases them. Can they do bad things? Sure, if they want, if it pleases them. The concepts of good and bad don't matter to them. Those are things for other people. From a criminal justice standpoint, the antisocial criminal, we have this picture in our mind of, when I say sociopath, you probably all picture serial killers, and they tend to be of higher intelligence and good looking and, able to manipulate people. And that's all true. That is all true. But there are plenty of street level gang members in LA who are sociopaths, who have no regard for human life or anything, and just, will kill or will not kill, depending on what it is that suits them at the moment. Antisocial personality disorder is extremely difficult to treat. There's really no treatment that we have right now that is successful, because these people are incredibly adept at lying. I'll tell you I'm cured. I'll keep going to your treatments if you tell me to, as long as it keeps me out of jail. I'll tell you I'm cured. I'll fake it. I'll do whatever I have to do, right up until I have something I want. So, antisocial personality disorder, sociopathology, not something to be messed around with or something to be taken lightly. When I dealt with domestic violence victims, a lot of the time, she would be low on the histrionic scale, and he would be high on the sociopathology scale, on the continuums. because her need for attention and emotional validation led her to somebody who was able to do that for her whenever he wanted, but would also take advantage of her whenever he wanted. So, and that is in no way to indicate that domestic violence victims are at fault for what happens to them, or to say that they're all histrionic. They are not. I'm just saying I've seen that occur. But even when she is, and DV victims can be men too, but it's more commonly a woman, even when she is not, has no personality disorder whatsoever, almost always the DV suspect has at least one of these personality disorders, and very often it is antisocial sociopath. So something to keep in mind. Oh, and almost always male. Females can be sociopaths, but it's almost always male. Narcissistic personality disorder. So narcissism has gotten a lot of play lately in the media, especially in women's empowerment discussions, trying to get women out of bad or toxic relationships, talking about whether or not the guy they're with is a narcissist. And again, I caution you against using pop psychology forums on Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook to determine whether or not somebody is a narcissist or not. However, if you are with a narcissist, you will know it. Narcissists are, again, primarily male. This is like the worst parts of histrionic and the worst parts of sociopath put together. The narcissist believes that they are special. They are a unique creature amongst all other creatures. Not that God made them special, because God, they transcend that. For whatever reason, they are special. And everybody else out there is there to serve or make them happy. Narcissists are consummate users and abusers. They're con men, almost always men. They will always believe that they are the better looking, the smarter, the faster, the more valued, the more whatever the question is, they're more of it. This is more than being arrogant. This is more than being cocky. This is more than being conceited. Because we talk about, somebody, is he full of himself? Yeah, he may be a jerk, but that doesn't necessarily make him a narcissist. Narcissism takes this to the almost psychotic level, where these people truly believe that they are a separate species, and all other people are there to serve them. They are capable of emotion, unlike the sociopath, insofar that emotion must serve them. So they could feel bad for something bad happening to somebody. They could have empathy for that, but only insofar that it impacts them. So, like, for instance, let's say a narcissist's child was involved in an accident and got a broken bone. Well, they would, of course, feel bad about that, but they would feel bad about it because it affects their family, their pet, what they're in control of. One of their possessions just got broken. Okay. They can display a strong sense of caring and nurturing, but it will always be in a very controlling, paternalistic sort of way. So it'll never be in a, hey, you know what? I'm really proud of you. You did a great job in that presentation. You got this. You know your stuff. And it'll be more in a, you know what? Don't you worry your little head about it. Don't even bother thinking about that kind of stuff. I got it. You just sit there and be beautiful. Okay, that kind of mindset, where it seems like they're caring. You know what? Let me go get you some food. I'll make you some food. Where it seems like a nice thing to do, but really what it is a way of establishing dominance and control. Just like I would tell my dog, let me go get you some food. The narcissist does not understand that they can be wrong. They don't understand that they can be at fault for something. And a term that's come to light a lot and is used a lot and is very accurate is gaslighting. The narcissist can't be wrong because they're special, they're right all the time. So when something happens and they're wrong, it must be your fault that they were wrong. So what the narcissist will do is say, tell you to go to the store, ask you to go to the store and pick up whatever, some eggs, right? And so you come back with eggs, and when you come back, they realize, shoot, I forgot to ask her to pick up milk too. And so they'll ask you, did you pick up milk? And she'll say, no, I didn't pick up milk. You told me to get eggs. And the narcissist will flip it around and make it your fault. How could you not? Did you not realize we were out of milk? Did you not open the refrigerator and see we were out of milk? How could you not know we were out of milk? I'm not going to be able to have cereal in the morning. My breakfast is ruined. I'm not going to. And so they'll flip it around and make their mistake your mistake. Or one of the things they like to do is try and just convince you that you're crazy and that the mistake never happened. Hey, we arranged to meet at 4 p.m. You showed up at 4. I wasn't there. Because I'm a narcissist and I don't care and about your schedule, and your time doesn't mean anything to me, but I didn't show up. And you come to me later, hey, you said you'd be there at 4. Where were you? I never said that. Yeah, you did. You said you'd be there at 4. No, I said I'd be there around 4, at 4-ish, and that kind of crap. That's gaslighting. And I hate to use this term, but skilled narcissists are incredibly good at making you feel like all of their faults are because of you. They're incredibly good at making you feel like any lack of success they have is your fault, because it can't be their fault. In actuality, the narcissist actually has some of the most fragile self-esteem out there, because it doesn't take much to shatter it and threaten it. And so that's why they have to come up with all these defensive behaviors to protect it. The narcissist tends to be physically attractive. They take care of themselves, and they want to fit the role that they believe themselves to be. So consummate narcissists in the media: Tony Stark, Iron Man. That guy is 100% narcissistic. Again, he's in a movie, so they got to show him some flex, and they got to give him room to grow and still be the good guy, right? Because he's still got to overcome everything. In reality, if you think about that guy in reality, he's a douchebag, right? He's a d-bag, and he's going to use everybody to make sure that he looks like the best at all times. Narcissistic relationships are toxic and deadly to people. They sometimes do result in violence and death, because ultimately, if the narcissist feels that they cannot control their world around them enough to make them look good enough, sometimes they react violently to try and reestablish that control. So the narcissist and the sociopath are similar but different, because the sociopath knows there's rules, just doesn't care about them because they have no conscience. The narcissist actually might have a conscience. They might actually be able to feel guilty. Narcissism can occur on a spectrum, just like everything else, and they may be kind of narcissistic, but aware of it and trying to work on it. Narcissism sometimes can be helped with therapy, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's pretty unlikely that there's any major politician, any president of the United States ever, congressperson, high-powered lawyer, CEO, who isn't at least a little bit a narcissist. They tend to be overachievers because they really believe in themselves, and so they tend to go out and do it. It's kind of rare to see a narcissist who is unsuccessful, at least on paper. Okay, all right. Borderline personality disorder. So this one is slightly more female than male. And borderline is kind of what happens when narcissism develops in a female. Well, histrionics kind of what happens when narcissism develops in a female. But borderline, when I said these diseases can occur in the opposite sex, but they kind of manifest a different way, borderline is one of those. BPD, borderline personality disorder. First of all, I got to explain the name. it sounds like it's on the borderline of being a disorder. And a lot of people get that mistaken. That's not what it means. The borderline part means that person is constantly on the borderline of exploding. They're at the threshold. They're always redlined. They've got it dialed to 11, and they're ready to go at any particular time. Borderline personality disorder, people with borderline are very emotionally and psychologically unstable or unstable. And what I mean by that is it doesn't take much to shatter their ability to reason and think and use logic. It only takes a little bit to cause this person to blow up and start doing really wild and eccentric things. People with borderline are incredibly volatile. They go from 0 to 100 real quick, and they can get violent real quick. When we see male domestic violence victims with a female suspect, the female is almost usually a borderline personality disorder, because they go from, where were you this afternoon, to, oh my God, you're cheating on me and I'm going to stab you in the face for it real quick. They have a desperate fear of losing their relationships, their connections with others, and they cling to all of their relationships, be they work relationships, be they friendship relationships, be they romantic relationships. They cling to them with frantic intensity, because they think that anything can possibly threaten that they're going to be lost and alone in the universe, and they freak out. Okay. Borderlines are slightly more female than male. I was talking with one psychologist who he just flat out refused to treat borderlines because he said he just didn't have the capacity and the ability to talk to these people and help them. Extremely challenging population to work with. We talk about the toxic relationship where a male is the narcissist and the female is the victim of that. When it's flipped the other way, it's usually the female's a borderline. And again, men can be borderline too. But when we see the picture in the media of the female who just goes absolutely nuts on some romantic comedy movie for no reason, and starts throwing stuff out the window or stabbing him or whatever for a relatively minor offense or for nothing, that's going to be a caricature of borderline personality disorder. There's medication for it, and there is treatment available, but persons with borderline personality disorder can be a very challenging population to treat, just like narcissistic, just like sociopathology. Okay, so that's going to be it for the dramatic and emotional. The last one, cluster C, is the fearful personality disorders. So we're going to go over 3 here. So the first is dependent personality disorder. This one is almost entirely female. The dependent personality disorder, like the borderline, is afraid of losing relationships, but the dependent personality disorder needs to be taken care of. It's not just that they need to have a relationship that they're a part of, but they need to be taken care of. They need somebody there to care for them. They need somebody there to cook for them. They need somebody there to clean for them. They need somebody there to tell them what to do, to give them encouragement. This person does not do well alone. Okay. Can males be dependent personality disorder? Yeah, absolutely. But again, a lot more female cases. But when we talk about a male who's trying to get into a relationship because he's looking for a mom, right? He needs somebody to take out. He might have dependent personality disorder. How it manifests in females is we see, she will do any and everything to keep this guy, and even if it means hurting herself, even if it means doing things that are bad for her, even if it means acting against her own self-interest, even if it means cutting off all of her friends, whatever it takes, she needs to be taken care of. Her biggest fear in the world is having that person, guy or woman or whatever, leave them. And And if they do, the world is over. They can't survive. They're not gonna survive. So you can see where the overlap here between like borderline and histrionic, right? Because the dependent personality is almost always going to threaten suicide when, I mean, if they're extreme, threaten suicide if the relationship's going south, because they honestly believe they're going to die if the relationship ends. And again, that's the extreme end of it. It can be down here, but the dependent personality disorder is the perfect victim for the narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, because the narcissist needs to be treated like they're somehow special and above all other people, and the dependent needs to be submissive in all things and taken care of, and can't possibly function without somebody else. I mean, that totally feeds a narcissist's ego. So that is a whirlwind, toxic relationship right there that is not going to end well for either one of those people. The dependent personality disorder can be treated through therapy. It can be helped. It's hard though. It's hard because do you know somebody, that lady who always ends up in toxic relationships? Like, she can't pick a good relationship, and she's in bad relationship after bad relationship after bad relationship, one after the other. Yeah, this is that, and it's hard. It's hard to treat because you have to convince the person that they're going to survive by themselves if they have to. The avoidant personality disorder. This one may come off like the schizoid insofar that the person is socially isolated. But this person is actually like the opposite of a narcissist. This person has incredibly low self-esteem, which manifests in low self-esteem, as opposed to the narcissist's low self-esteem, which manifests in this inflated ego. This person's low self-esteem is crippling to them. They end up with social anxiety. They end up with social phobias. They can't go out in public. They can't post stuff on the internet. They can't they can't interact with other people because they are so desperately afraid of rejection. They are socially inept because of that, because we learn how to interact with other people through practice, right? Through repeated exposure over our lifetime. And so they become socially inept. They become unable to deal with other people. And so they retreat a lot. And we see them retreating into technology. We see them retreating into the internet. We see them retreating into fantasy worlds. People with avoidant personality disorder find it very hard to have a job. And if they do have a job, it's got to be something where they're not, it's never going to be something where they're put on the spot. It's never going to be something where they're asked to make the big play, the big call. It's never going to be something where they're going to do more than just plain old functionary work. Hey guys, my bad. My audio cut off there on the last part of my presentation. So the last thing I want to discuss with you is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. It is not to be confused with obsessive compulsive disorder. They're not the same thing. They really got to rename this thing because that's very confusing for people. So obsessive compulsive disorder, quick reminder, that's obsessive thoughts, compulsive actions to relieve the anxiety from the obsessive thought. Those compulsive actions can be kind of odd or eccentric actions, like flipping on the light switch 13 times before you leave the house. Otherwise, you believe your children will die or something like that. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder is different. That is the rigid type A sort of personality that we tend to associate with OCD, that most people think is OCD. So this is the person, all the books have to be aligned in a certain way. The light switches have to be going a certain direction. Everything has to be in its place. And if it's not, it will cause severe psychological distress. And again, just because you know somebody who's type A, who's a picture straightener, and everything has to be a certain way, doesn't mean they have obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Remember, these things have to be clinically significant. They have to be actually causing problems in your life. So just because somebody has some traits of any one of these personality disorders doesn't mean they have the full-blown diagnosis, okay? All right, guys, thanks very much. Sorry about the weird ending of the video. We'll talk to you soon.